This series of videos covers three main concepts. This one is about the context of the situation we find ourselves in. The following ones are about strategies, techniques, processes and attitudes that will help you and yours make the best of a difficult situation. As a nation, we've been kind of hit by a perfect storm. From October 2019 to December, the biggest bushfires in Australia's history ravaged 13 million acres, reduced 2,439 houses to ashes and took 27 lives. Photos from satellite showed the smoke completely circling the globe. Then in January 2020, monsoon-like rain created floods that devastated much of the country. More people perished and untold millions of dollars of damage was done. And experts agree the landscape may be permanently damaged. A huge chunk of Australia spent most of 2020 trying to get back on their feet. And now the coronavirus health issues brought the economy and with it much of the population to its knees. But Australians are a resilient lot. In the fires, a volunteer bushfire brigade got massive numbers of people onto the ground at the coalface. People who basically gave up their normal life for as much as 10 or 12 weeks, risking their own lives trying to save a community of people they'd never met. The SES people were everywhere in the floods. So once again, regular Aussies acting for the common good in a group effort scaled from the ground up. Simply put, it was Aussies helping Aussies who were having their lives threatened. In both cases, those brave volunteers often put their own money into the resources they needed to get on with having an impact. And they would have considered it unethical to take petrol money or get compensated for their time. What has that got to do with the current situation? Well, as it turns out, plenty really. In the fires and the floods, the fair income Aussies were compelled to act out of compassion. Those who could got off their backsides to add something. The inevitable small percentage of assholes who looted and stole, well, they did that because their avarice overtook them and we just condemned them as mongrels and we got on with it. We satisfied ourselves by hoping that the coppers took them behind the back shed for a bit of an attitude adjustment. The coronavirus has triggered a totally different emotion, and obviously that's fear instead of compassion. The small percentage of assholes have been joined by a big percentage of rabble, panicked, self-centered and terrorised individuals acting compulsively, thereby triggering more alarm and anxiety. And the frantic stockpiling of anything that appears to be in short supply has triggered runs on, firstly, toilet paper, then canned goods, next meat and other staples. And people become so panicked that their fear is ruining their behaviour to such an extent they can't respond to reason or logic or even use rational thinking to govern their behaviour. Here's some simple ideas to illustrate. You could wash your ass instead of wiping it. Canned food's just prepackaged sugar, and going vegetarian for a while would no doubt be bloody good for you. I could go on and on, but that's off at a tangent. Me and my family, we want to contribute what we can to help. And if we're going to do that, we're going to give what we value most. And that turns out to be the skills we've learnt over the years. So we want to skill you up mentally and emotionally, because my 35 years of experience, including working with people in the Canberra bushfires in 2003, is about sharing with you mental and emotional skills that turn out to be the most useful when the pressure is on. And now's the time when we most need to be our best, because this problem is only going to be fixed at the grassroots level. The government just can't tell people to stop panicking. In fact, if they did, things would get immediately worse. So it's up to us. What I want to offer you in these lessons is 1, mental skills that mean you think better, straighter and more logically when it comes to figuring out what's the best thing to do for you and your family. Number 2, emotional strategies for staying cool, calm and collected even when the panic reaches deafening levels. By the way, those 2 skills by themselves are going to be invaluable for the rest of your life. But I want to also go to the next level. There are plenty of people out there who are already using their mental and emotional skills to keep their heads and their hearts together. Heaps of the public have maintained a rational approach since day one. And if you're one of them, you are probably the key to our nation coming back to being the civilised, community-minded, compassionate country we all know and love. We need you spreading that influence. So, I'm also going to cover how best to deal with those who are overcome by the circumstances. Many of them already know that they're not being their best selves, but they lack the emotional intelligence to get themselves out of their current overblown emotional state. Even simple concepts that are for the common good can bring some people undone. For example, there are, or there at least there will be, many people who self-isolate and then somewhere down the track start to suffer the debilitating effects of loneliness, disconnection, and even irrelevance, which of course can lead to hopelessness, depression, maybe even suicide. So you might be okay yourself, and honestly, I hope you are. And that much of what I have to say is no more than common sense to you. But we need you skilled up on how to spread that common sense because it's a lot less common than you might think. We desperately need to help people handle their fears so that we can re-establish compassion as our community driver. That way, we can get back to keeping our eye out for the well-being of our compatriots and actively be involved in taking care of one another. There's nothing more certain than fear beating us to a pulp. But it's also bloody obvious that if we can join forces, we can create a massive win. So see you in the next video where I'm going to lay out the first concepts, which are about mental skills.